Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host Sharfuz.
At Careers Uncorked, we host some amazing guests and hear their incredible stories.
And we're super excited to have you join us today.
Hi guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid, and today we have a really special co-host with us. It's Alia. She was one of our guests earlier, and she's been working with the Careers Uncorked team, helping us with marketing and stuff like that. She's also a great fan of Will Smith, so she's excited to be here. So Alia, you want to quickly say hi to the audience?
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. I don't know why we're talking about Will Smith. I do love him. Entanglement with August that's all I have to say.
That was a great video. So how's your week going, Alia?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's really hot here in Cambridge, but I'm staying cool and yeah, it's going great.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I've had quite the week. I've been traveling a little bit, and I was so tired yesterday. I barely woke up for the session, but I'm glad to be here. It's fun, and I'm really excited for this session. So, Alia, what do we know about Anisha?
Anisha is amazing. She's one of my good friends. I met her at Rochester. We were both in Chi Omega together, and she's she's like the epitome of the person who like has their shit together but pretends that they don't. She's gonna swear that she doesn't have her shit together, but she always gives really good advice, and I'm so excited to have her here on the show.
Likewise. Anyone tuning in from Chi Omega, make sure to leave a comment so we know that you're here, because I did tell Alia to call all of her friends.
Right. Yeah, it's required.
Keeping count. All right. With that being said, let's bring on Anisha to the stage.
Hi guys.
Hey.
I'll start by saying I don't have my stuff together, so I don't.
I knew you were gonna say that.
We're doing really well with the fake it till you make it attitude. So clearly,
That's the right approach. So,
Right.
Anisha, why don't you quickly introduce yourself for the viewers? Just tell us a little about what you did in college and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah, so as Alia mentioned, I also went to the University of Rochester. I graduated in 2018. I studied biomedical engineering in undergrad, and then since graduating, I've been working in consulting with Ernst Young in their tech consulting practice, working specifically with financial service organizations.
Wow, that is super exciting. Ernst Young was actually one of the firms I applied to my junior year for a summer internship. It was one of the two firms, and I really want to go to Ernst Young, but they didn't like me enough, so... Now I'm on the other side, and I'm sort of a little bit of a hater.
But you ended up at Deloitte, so I think you made it through.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
All right. So with that being said, let's sort of jump in, because I think we're really excited to hear about your journey throughout college and you being a chameleon. So Alia, you want to kick us off with a couple of questions about college?
Yeah, sure. So the big question is, what were the defining moments in your college career?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I feel like we'll do this chronologically. So the first one was deciding where to go to school. So I got into a bunch of options on the West Coast, a couple of engineering schools, and I knew I wanted to study engineering going in. And I visited these bigger campuses. We did a whole West Coast road trip, and I hated them. I came from a really small high school, and I just felt like I have a friend who was at one of the campuses, and she's like, yeah, I can walk across campus and not see a single person I know. And I was like, that freaks me out. Like, I don't want it. And so when I visited Rochester, it was a completely different environment. It was very small. And I remember the girl that was showing me around was someone who's a senior in the BME department. And she was like, yeah, I got into a similar sort of set of schools as you did. And the reason I decided to come here is because I could have been kind of a small fish in a really big pond at one of those schools, or I could be a big fish in a small pond at this school. And she's like, just the connections you get and the way you get to know the department was really the selling point for me. And that really appealed to me. So that ultimately kind of influenced my decision to come to Rochester. And I love my time there. I did BME throughout, but I came in kind of not sure what I wanted to do after the fact with BME. So my sophomore year, I made the decision to shift. So the first 2 years, I really was like, great, everyone around me is doing pre-med. I'm going to do pre-med too. It seems like a pretty straightforward path. You're doing biomedical engineering. You end up in med school. Makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And I dove headfirst into that. I did MERT. I did like all of the rotations that you do in the hospital, like everything. And it took me until sophomore year to take a step back and be like, why am I doing this? Am I actually interested in this? Or am I just using inertia to drive myself forward? And the specific moment was, I want to say like an Orgo 2 workshop where they handed us a sheet of paper and they were like, you should remember all of this from Orgo 1. And I looked at it and I knew nothing. And I walked out of the seminar, I dropped the class, and I took a Python class instead.
Amazing.
So that kind of was the pivot away from medicine. And then consulting happened junior year. I was applying to internships. And I kind of stumbled into EY. I had a great internship experience. And then I did interview with a couple of other firms my senior year, but I didn't like any of them as much as I liked EY. So it made a lot of sense to come here after. And I've loved my time here since. So, yeah.
Great.
Wow.
So clearly, go ahead, Sid, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say that's really, really exciting to hear. Like, I've had so many of those experiences just walking into a class and being like, I absolutely do not know what's happening. So it was great to hear from you about that.
It was fun.
So clearly that Orgo 2 is not the class for you, but were there any classes that you absolutely loved or you felt like they were defining moments in your career?
Yeah. I mean, I think there were a lot of classes that I really loved. The first couple of years of coursework, which is every BME class was super exciting to me because it's just I'm like a total nerd. I wanted to know as much information as possible. But I feel like the classes that I loved the most, I ended up being a TA for. So it was the BME 101 class, the biomaterials class that I took my junior year, a biomechanics class that I took my sophomore year, and then genetics in the bio department. I love genetics. And I had this whole midlife crisis, like junior, senior year, where I was like, oh my God, I like genetics so much. Maybe I should go into pure biology. And I took a step back. I was like, why do I like genetics? And it's because it's the problem solving discipline within bio. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm on the right track.
My running joke being at a research university is I don't ever understand any of the words that anybody's saying. So you just listed all these classes that like are not, I don't even know what the class title means. So we're like off to a good start. Like I don't belong there.
It's fine. If it helps at all, I don't use any of them in my real life. So that's going really well for me.
Well, at least they were fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Miserable, but fun, in a masochistic way that engineering really is.
Right. So we also wanted to ask you about your experience with your student organizations. And I know you were really involved in She's the First. So I want to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was involved in a bunch of different organizations, but She's the First was definitely kind of the biggest one. I brought it to campus my sophomore year. So it was a bunch of my friends that I started the club with. Because I'm not sure if you're like familiar with how to start a club at Rochester, but essentially you needed to get 15 names on a piece of paper. And so I went to all my friends. I was like, you're starting this club with me. I need to do this thing and I need you to sign up for it. So it was like my boyfriend at the time was like the vice president. My best friend was my co-president, like for my freshman hall was the visit, like all of them together were thrown onto an e-board. And this ragtag group of people that I was bullying the entire sophomore club together. But the mission behind She's the First, it's a national nonprofit that works with girls in low-income countries that are the first in their families to graduate from secondary school. And they've kind of broadened that mission since I first started working with them to just be kind of supporting girls both in their education and beyond, whether that entails going to university or whether that entails kind of starting their own businesses out of secondary school. And I resonated with that very heavily because my family grew up going to India, and I remember seeing a lot of kids that were my age on the streets. I would be in the back of a car reading a book, and these kids would be out stoplights trying to sell toys and make enough money for their family. And I would think to myself, why aren't these kids in school? A lot of times it's just their families couldn't afford to send them to school, or they didn't understand the impact of education, or some combination of the two. So whatever I could do to kind of help that problem, I became pretty passionate about that. So yeah.
That's amazing. And now you're still doing work with education in Minds Matter, right?
Yeah. So I'm still actually, we're also working with She's the First, but as well as that, I'm working with an organization called Minds Matter. So my first year in the city, I was not sure I could tackle on much more than whatever work was going to throw at me. I thought that my hours would be pretty insane. And I realized pretty quickly that I can't just do work. I did so many extracurriculars in undergrad that I needed some sort of balance. And so Minds Matter, I heard about from a friend who does it in San Francisco. And so she posted it on Instagram and I was like, I wonder if New York has a chapter. And so that's how I got involved there. It operates through a mentorship program. So they take high achieving sophomores in New York public high schools, and they have this whole program for them with writing and test prep, which is like math, and mentorship over the course of the next 3 years to help them get into top tier colleges. And I think 100% of them go to like tier 1 through 3 universities, like really good schools. And these kids are super smart. And so I work with them as a test prep instructor. So that means I get to teach them math on Saturdays. And the fact that my kids like me at the end of the semester makes me really happy because I'm the one forcing them to do geometry on a Saturday morning.
Right.
It's great.
Anisha actually just recruited me like 2 weeks ago to join her for Minds Matter.
I really like the organization. I think the work they do is great.
Yeah. So stay tuned for your favorite Minds Matter writing and test prep tutors. It's us.
That's really exciting. That's so exciting to hear that you went from that journey of seeing the struggles in the world. Like I also grew up in India and I've seen similar situations like you mentioned with kids sort of selling toys just to feed their family, and even people who are like handicapped just trying to make enough money so they can like feed their family.
Right.
So it's really great that you took that experience and then you converted it into something where you could give back to the society. And that's, I think, oftentimes the gap, right? You see a problem, but you don't really know how to solve it. I'm so happy that you actually took initiatives, and you still are to this day trying to push forward that cause. So that's really amazing to hear.
Yeah, I feel like throughout kind of middle and high school, you always get told to get involved with service organizations, and you do it. But I think it wasn't until I found this one that I really resonated with the cause at hand. Like, obviously, you care about all of these causes that people are fighting for, but until you have that personal connection to it, it's more just kind of you're going through the motions and doing the good thing because you feel like you should do the good thing. And now it's like, great, any free time that I have, I really want to dedicate to making sure that all students have equal education opportunities.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
and it's so much more, it's amazing if you can take that passion that you have and then like apply it directly to the work, and then it feels really fulfilling. So I'm great that you found that.
Yeah. Very true.
The other question we wanted to ask about your college life was what you did during your summers. I know you interned at UI.
Yes. Okay. Again, I think chronological probably makes sense. So freshman summer, I want to say the first half of the summer, I stayed on campus and I did research and I took 2 classes. One of them was a pre-med requirement that I couldn't fit in during the school year. And then one was a psych class for my cluster. And then I was doing research in, there was a lab in the med center that was run by, I want to say a med student. It wasn't a BME person, but they were basically putting together 3D printed kidneys. So essentially there's a certain procedure that needs to be done on kidneys. And unless you do it on an actual kidney, you're not going to get the real sense of how it feels. So they were using biomaterials, and specifically I want to say like some polymer. They were using it and they were putting together these kidneys so that it was the right shape, and you were able to suture into them, and you were getting the same level of tension and kind of effort needed in order to do it on those as you would in a real world setting. And I feel like that work is still going on, but it was super interesting because it was the first time I was using engineering in like a medical space outside of classes. And I realized pretty quickly I did not want to do research for the rest of my life.
That's so interesting though.
Yeah, it was super interesting and I wanted to like it. And then it's fun.
And then sophomore year?
Sophomore year, yes. Sophomore year, I interned. So my mom is a lot. And so she really wanted to make sure I was getting an internship, and I'd applied to a bunch of them and I didn't get into anything sophomore year. And so my mom was she's a small business owner, and she was at a small business owner event in Connecticut, and she met someone who was starting a healthcare incubator out of Yale New Haven Hospital. So this was a recent graduate of the Yale MBA program, and he was starting this digital health incubator, meaning like apps and digital products that have to do with the healthcare space. He was starting that, and he was looking for interns, and my mom like shoved my resume in his face and like, great, my daughter does these things. And so I got this internship, which was awesome. I got startup experience, which was really cool as a first internship. And then I also got, I think it kind of propelled me towards consulting because I was working with these teams that were going through the incubation process. And I was given a lot of responsibility because it was a startup setting. So they were like, great, do all these things. And I'm like, I am 18 years old. I don't know what to do. But it was cool to be handed that level of responsibility and asked to just kind of run with it. So it was great. The people I worked with were fantastic. It's still going really strong. And they're doing really well. So, I was also very familiar with the Yale New Haven healthcare system because I had interned there in high school. So I did like volunteer shifts and I shadowed doctors and the whole thing. Junior year, I landed the EY internship. And so that was really cool because I landed it in the fall. And then they told all the interns that were accepted, there's like a program that they have to send you abroad. And they only take a couple of kids, like it's really selective. And I was like, great, this is not going to happen for me. But I really wanted to do it because I lived abroad when I was younger and I didn't get a chance to do study abroad because engineering, it's a little bit hard. And so I was like, great, this would be an awesome way to both make money and be sent abroad. So I applied and I got in, which was awesome. So I did 2 weeks in New York and then I did 4 weeks in Perth, Australia. And then a week back in kind of Orlando because they do a huge end of internship conference. So that was that summer. And then I got a return offer from them. And then, after I graduated, I just bumped around Europe for a summer. So that's
what you're supposed to do, right?
There we go. Exactly. Things I wish I was doing right now.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely different this year.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's absolutely crazy, though. That sounds like a wonderful internship experience. You get to travel like all over the place. That's so awesome.
It was great.
Right.
I mean, the only downside to the EY one was they didn't have the equivalent of the tech consulting that I was doing in Australia. So they were like, "Oh, you're an engineer. We're going to put you in R&D tax." And I was like, "What is tax?"
What's R&D?
A bunch of engineers, like former chemical engineers, former biomedical engineers, things like that. The people were awesome. I think the biggest thing that I've realized is I really don't care what the work is that I'm doing. If I like the people, I'll do whatever. So the people were really great. And so it was a cool experience just to like be in another country, meet people, kind of get to know the firm through that way. And then come back. But in terms of actual consulting experience, I gained 0 that summer. Like one person took me to meet clients. The coolest thing I did that summer was they were trying to put together a database of all of the biotech firms in Western Australia because I guess that biotech scene was very much lagging behind the rest of the world and they were just entering into that market. So she had me come with her and meet all of these really cool biotech owners. Like one of them was some huge award winner. We went to a major research center. So I got to kind of travel around in that sense, which was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, really fun.
Also, I have to share as a takeaway for that, getting your Australia internship, that I have another friend that did the same EY internship and went to Australia. Cool. And both of you said, there's no way that I'm getting it. So in conclusion, apply for that next thing because even if you don't think, you got a little imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, I'm definitely not one of the top people. You might be because Anisha is. So,
I mean, I think that's good advice regardless. Anything that you really don't think you have a shot at, just apply. Like, worst that happens is you don't get it, which is what you expected to happen anyway. So it's kind of fine. And if you do get it, then that's super awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yep. So here's what I want to jump into next. So I'm really curious, between the internship that you had with EY and then you went after graduation, you returned back to EY. You mentioned there was sort of a difference between what work you were doing in Australia. So what was that like? What was the switch there, and how did you sort of adapt to it?
So the work that I was doing in the internship was literally paperwork. Like there was a standardized form that any company that engaged in research and development work in Australia had to fill out in order to like submit their taxes. So I was doing research on mining companies and like the R&D that they were doing in order to determine drill sites in like the ocean. No idea what was going on. So that was literally just lots of research and like filling in a form. In contrast, what I was doing when I joined EY was kind of all over the place. So the first month that I joined, I should say this, when I did intern with EY, I had 2 weeks in New York and they didn't want to put me on a real project because they're like, you're leaving in 2 weeks, we're not gonna. So by the time we ramp you up, you're going to be gone. So I got put in their innovation office, which kind of went hand in hand with the work that I had done the prior summer in terms of the digital health stuff. So they had an innovation office in Union Square in New York, and it was just getting kind of put together. This was one of the early years for it, and they call it Wave Space. And it's essentially they bring their major clients there and they put like all of these techie things in front of them and say, great, this is what UI is capable of providing you, and they help use it to help you sell work. So I got some experience with that. So when I joined full time, I joined in October, and so EY has like July, August, and September start dates. So by the time the October kids came in, there were no roles available for us. We essentially were on the bench, and I'm a very anxious person, and I was like, they're gonna fire me because they realized I have no skills to contribute to this job, and I'm already on the bench. Like, this is not gonna go well. So I wanted to make it as useful as possible, as quickly as possible. So I reached out to that team in New York, and I worked with them for the first month, which was super fun. They had me doing like kind of more on the development side of the spectrum. So I was helping them test, like they had downloaded a new software for event planning. So I was working through the kinks with that and trying to help integrate it with their existing operations. And then I had my first project, I want to say like a month into, so I really wasn't on the bench for that long, but I was just like, oh, I thought that, I was going to get fired. So then I had my first project, which was an AML project, which is notorious for being something that you don't want to get on. And again, I started just that I don't want to be pigeonholed as an AML person. AML is anti-money laundering. So essentially as an analyst, what you are doing is looking at transaction after transaction, and you have to go through like 500 a day or something like that, or maybe a higher number. And you have to see if it looks like it is money laundering. So if it looks suspicious, you escalate it and somebody actually looks into it. And if it doesn't look suspicious, then you let it go. But if you get it wrong, then that like is potentially, the bank is open to liability. Yeah. But your job is you're just like warm bodies in a basement, like going through these every day. And so I was like, this is not what I want to do for years of my career. So again, I networked my way out of it. So my first real consulting project was not probably until 3 months after I joined the firm. And I joined a huge merger between two major asset management firms, and I was thrown in head first. My first day was like a meeting with our major stakeholders. I had to put together a client presentation like day one, which was very into. I was like, oh God, this is being shown to like the senior vice president of learning and development, like, very high up. Yeah. And I had no idea what I was doing. So it was like, I had a week to figure it out. And then I was on that project for 7 months. And by the end of it, I felt very comfortable with it. But yeah, going in, I felt super nervous because I had no finance background and I was working in financial services, and I was like, I feel like a fraud. And two, I had no tech background because I'm a tech consultant. They assume that I know some sort of tech skills. And I was like, I took Python 161 and Java 171, and that is the extent of my technical knowledge. So please go, if you want MATLAB advice on like how to look at images of rat tumors, I can maybe help you there. But like, so yeah, it was fun.
That's quite the story. I mean, literally, you walked into a situation and you sort of like learned and adapted through it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the story. So we're
starting to see the chameleon.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, we're starting to see the colors. So in terms of like your work at EY, what do you think is something that was really difficult for you to adapt to, coming from sort of a different major? Like your whole career before getting into EY was very different from what you're doing right now. So what was the most difficult part adapting to it?
I think just like getting to know, I feel like as a business major, which a lot of my colleagues were, or even kind of like a technology, you either have in-depth expertise in the business side of things or you have in-depth expertise on the tech side of things. And I didn't really have either, but I had a little bit of each. And so trying to figure out, one, where I wanted to drill down into, and two, how to gain that knowledge outside of a traditional classroom setting. Because in the past, it was like, great, if I want to learn something, I'm going to take a class on it. Now it's like, cool, you need to figure this all out while working like 10 hours a day on whatever project you're working on. So doing that was a little bit interesting. I think the biggest thing was like figuring out the tech knowledge. So, or not the tech knowledge, the tech came quickly because I had kind of prior experience with coding. That was fine. And I haven't really been asked to do a lot of heavy duty coding. I feel like there are two brands or flavors of tech consultant. They're the ones that do a lot of the back office work. And I made it very clear very quickly. I was like, I'm not one of those people. If you want like a technical expert, that is not me. There are much smarter people that are able to do that work for you, and I'm not one of them. But what I could do is and I think someone on one of my early projects gave me this term, and so I've used it going forward, but what they call executive presence. You can put me in front of a client and I'm happy to explain something that I understand from a tech side and make it clear to you as a client who has no technical background whatsoever. So that kind of became my niche. And so I once I figured out that I was good in that area, it became great. How much on the tech side do I need to understand, and how much on the business side do I need to understand? So the business side was a little bit harder. I feel like I had no financial exposure in undergrad. I remember I did my first case study and I was like, I don't even know what revenue means. Like you hear these things and you don't actually, I was like, is revenue the same as price? No, they're not. So just understanding that, it took a little bit, like once you get it, it's fine. But just knowing where to look for that information, because it's like, if you think about it, it's like 101, business 101 sort of information. People assume you have this knowledge. Right. Every time you ask someone how much business knowledge you need in order to go into a case situation, they're like, no, like you have it already. And I was like, no, I literally do not have it already. Like, please tell me where to find this information. Get up to speed and not look like a moron in front of my colleagues.
Wow, that's really exciting that you managed to like learn all these things, right at the job. When I started in consulting, they sort of threw me in. They were like, yeah, you're expected to know all this. So I'm glad you have a story where you were able to learn all these things while on the job.
Yeah. I feel like that's most of consulting as a whole. I think the more people I meet in consulting, it's kind of like, I had no idea what I was doing. And then they put me in the situation and I figured it out. Like truly, if fake it if you make it was a subtype or a subtext for any industry, it's consulting.
Yeah. Very, very true. So I think we should jump into our most exciting segment.
Oh my God, I'm nervous.
It is, yeah. It's the rapid fire. But before we start, I forgot to sort of mention one thing at the start. Shurfuz, our second co-host, is actually on a wheelchair, so he was not able to make it to the session today.
Oh my God.
We were in Colorado. He stared at a rock and he slipped. He wasn't on the rock; he was on the path, but he just slipped. So he got
nervous.
We got very nervous.
You okay?
Yeah, no, but we're working on creating some video content around it, so it's going to be like a whole story, and everyone will be able to see it. We'll make sure we share it on our channel too, if we do come up with a video. But yeah, that's just for everyone watching. Shurfuz is he's alive. He's just a little hurt. But yeah,
I don't understand how that means that he can't be here with us today, but he'll have to explain that at another time.
Yeah, we'll leave that for Shurfuz to explain. Coming back to the rapid fire, I'll get us started and then Alia will carry us along. So what's the best treat from Le Rouge Chocolates?
Okay, my mom makes this so Le Rouge Chocolates is my mom's chocolate shop, for clarity.
Would you want to drop the link?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I can send
a
it to
promo.
You. Oh, there you go. I want to say the best thing that she does, she has these coffee truffles that I use as like, it's got like an espresso shot equivalent, like probably not a full espresso shot, but it's really good. And it's the perfect dosage of like dark chocolate and coffee. That one's my favorite, as well as she has one that is Bon, which is like an Indian flavor that's like rose beet, I don't know, something. It's Indian flavors. It tastes really good. It's like kind of minty, but not. I don't know how to explain it. Mom explains it a lot better, but it's really good.
Yeah. Wow. So make sure to go check out the website and grab some chocolates. Everyone's in quarantine, so it's a great time to have chocolates.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe she'll sponsor Careers Uncorked. We've been trying to get sponsorship from Blue Bottle for a while. So.
That would be awesome. Like, totally. I can see like a box of chocolates just in the background right here. Right. That'd be so awesome.
Like giveaways with gift cards. Yep. Everybody has to go to Connecticut. I love it. We have a whole picture here.
Anisha's mom, if you're watching, this is a straight up word to you. We would love to be sponsored by your chocolate company. I love chocolates personally. I'm sort of a milk chocolate guy. I do enjoy dark chocolate as well. And I'm sure Alia loves her chocolates as well.
Yeah, we're so obsessed with Anisha's mom. We love you so much.
All right. Let's move on to the next question.
Next question. Where in the world would you like to live outside the U.S.?
Okay, I feel like if to go to school, it would be the UK. Like I'm thinking about the UK for grad school, but I think to live outside the US, I loved living in Asia growing up, and I feel like I would want to go back. I would say Hong Kong, but with the current political situation, that is probably no longer an option. So maybe something like Singapore, potentially Tokyo.
Wow. I love it. CRA, where are you at?
All right. What superhero power would you have?
Oh, I don't know if this counts, but I've always wanted a time turner, literally for the reason that in the book, in order to take like multiple classes at once or just do multiple things at once. Because I feel like there's not enough hours in the day, and I'm aging every I need to.
Hermione, where are you at? Oh my God, it's you. I love it so much. Wow. That's the most Anisha answer ever. I think we can just stop now because those are true pillars.
Wow.
Okay, speaking of the most you ever, best story from your synchronized swimming days.
Oh God. Okay, best story. I mean, okay, this kind of sums up my experience pretty well. My last year synchronized swimming, I guess if you don't count the Hong Kong years, my last year in the US synchronized swimming was before we moved to Hong Kong. I was out of commission for most of the season because I had 2 back-to-back concussions. And the way I got them is great. So the first one happened because we were in the locker room and someone was trying to film something from like my team. She wanted to, it was like pre-Snapchat days. I don't remember why we had phones out, but and I was like not in a position to be filmed. And so I backed up and I backed into the corner of 2 walls and I backed really hard. And then we had Pilates right after because we had Pilates before we went into the pool. So that was bad. And so that was the first one. And then they're like, okay, like you can maybe go back into the water. Like it was still preseason at that point. And I was like, cool. And so I was getting back in the water, my first week in the water. They were doing a lift in the deep end of the pool. And a lift is basically a bunch of girls kind of underwater. And there's one girl called the flyer on top. Essentially, if you've seen any cheerleading video ever, it's the same thing, but with water. And the flyer goes off. And so this girl was a flyer and she jumped off and landed on me. And so I got kicked in. So it was 2 back to back. Oh, out of commission for that.
Out.
Yeah, so that summarizes the end of my sports career. I'm a non-athletic human being.
Right. Yeah. Sid and I actually were watching synchronized swimming videos before this prep. We couldn't find any of you. Don't worry, we won't play them. But we were like, wait, we have to see what's up here.
Yeah, I did not know what it was, so it was quite. Yeah,
I didn't either until I joined. My mom wanted to sign me up for the swim team, and then saw them practicing at the Y, and she was like, "You're doing this instead." Like, oh, I'm 9. I can't object to this. So that was And I was a huge tomboy as a kid, and they have like sparkly outfits, and they wear makeup and like headpieces and stuff, and it was my nightmare. Yeah.
Wow. All right, next question. What's the best thing about living in New York City?
Oh God, the food probably, and the fact that you can get it literally whenever you want. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I miss. Just like 1, trying new places, and 2, the variety of options. Like I remember a month or 2 into living in the city, I was really craving. My mom makes like Indian street food from time to time, chaat. And so I was like, I don't know where I can find this in the city. And so I did a quick Google search, and there was a place near me. And so I ordered like 5 different types of chaat, and I was so happy. And I had a bottle of wine, and I was like, this is my life. Like I'm thriving.
The best.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Okay, next question. Biggest misconception of entering the consulting world?
I think that you need to be like one of 2 majors in order to do it. Like I thought that you had to either be like a business major or something in the econ space in order to go into it, or you needed to be like a computer scientist in order to go into the data side of things. And I can tell you, as someone who is neither of those things, like, you don't need to do that. I've had friends that were English majors. Like they're looking for critical thinking skills. So as long as you develop those and you can show that you've developed those, and you can communicate to people, then you can definitely go into consulting.
Great.
Wow. All right. So what podcasts are you listening to right now?
Okay, like career podcasts or regular podcasts?
It could be for fun, yeah.
for fun. Oh, I mean, I am a political junkie, so I listen to a lot of Pod Save America, like all the time. Pod Save America, Pod Save the World, Love It or Leave It. Other than that, I want to say, what other podcasts am I listening? I'm not into, like, I have morning briefings that I listen to. So I Google Home every time I wake up, I say good morning, and it gives me my morning briefings. So I have, yes, this is the thing that you can do. So you can like set up morning routines. And so I say, hey, Google, good morning. And my Google Home says, hello, Anisha. And it gives me the weather and it gives me my upcoming agenda items for the day. And then it launches into my morning briefings. So I have like a Politico one. I have Bloomberg Business Week. I try to do political news, market news, and then kind of general news at the end. So I have like the daily and What a Day, which is a Crooked Media podcast. And then, so I go through and The Economist has a daily briefing as well. So kind of amazing.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool. Let's avoid saying, okay, Google again, because, sorry.
Did it just wake up your...
It's right here. It's like sitting right in front of me too.
You have to set up your daily briefing now.
I will put that up.
Okay, this is the most important question. What is your favorite song from Folklore by Taylor Swift?
Okay, so this changes on an hourly basis.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
So currently it's between The One and Exile, which I like both of them a lot, but I also really like Betty, and I also really like Tears Ricochet, and I also really like, honestly, I like all of them. Miracle Ball is a new one that's up and coming through my ranking. We have a friend from our sorority, a friend named Anna, and so she and I have been in constant communication since the announcement. And so every time our like ranking shift even slightly, like we'll text each other
into the add me to the group chat. Can I be in? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Currently, I'm loving the last Great American Dynasty because it's like
so good.
Got the sass going on. Sid, what's your current fave?
I actually heard a couple of songs yesterday, so still getting used to the album. I do like one of her previous songs. It was called "Shake It Off." I would love that one.
Okay, that was a different Taylor or in a new Taylor era, but okay, it's fine. We can like shake it off.
It's fine.
Fearless, let's go back. Speak Now, Forever Hold Your Peace. You know, Teardrops on My Guitar. Okay, I'm done.
All right, next question. What's one YouTuber you follow?
Any YouTubers?
Okay, not even
on YouTube.
Not even Careers Uncorked?
Oh, okay. I have subscribed to your channel.
Right.
But I don't consume YouTube content that frequently. I feel like I go on YouTube to like watch trailers for movies and to watch, now that they're filming the Crooked Media podcast, to watch like the video version of it as opposed to watching it. But I'm more of like a TV show person as opposed to like a movie person or a YouTube person. Sorry.
Got
it. And the final question, this is also very important. Who's your favorite co-host?
Oh, well, this is a biased question.
Well, co-host means a co-host, not necessarily your friend. So you can decide what that means.
This is fair, but based on the quantity of data that I have on the two of you, I'm skeptical with Alia, but sorry.
Yeah.
You're great. It's just I've known her for so long, and she's so beautiful, and she's one of my favorite humans on the planet. It's really no.
I think we need to get Sharfooz in here because I just went from not even on the scoreboard to the top of the favorite co-host. I think that's how it works.
Perfect.
So I'm number one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Love it.
Perfect.
All right. So let's sort of jump into the main story here. So the perks of being a career chameleon. So Alia, you want to kick us off with the first question? Because I know you were really curious about Anisha and how she landed her job at UI.
Right. Yeah. So I wanted to hear a little bit about your job application process when you were leaving the U of R and how that went for you.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, leaving the U of R, I'm going for like junior year because I got the EY internship junior year. But as I mentioned, sophomore year, I applied to a ton of things in the biotech space and I didn't get anything. I was like, oh my God, I am doomed to just graduate and have no job and it's going to be terrible. And so junior fall, it was like a week before the career fair, I want to say. And so I was part of the Biomedical Engineering Society, and I was on the executive board. And so all executive board members for business organizations in the engineering school got invited to a Tau Beta Pi event, which is the honor society. And so they invited recruiters from companies that they thought were like a good fit for engineering students. And you had like Facebook and Google and Instagram, and obviously those ones were swarmed, and I was like, I'm not interested. And then there was EY standing in the corner, and I was like, I think I've heard of them. Like I was dabbling with the idea of maybe going into consulting. And so I went and spoke to the recruiter, and she was like, great, I'm so glad you're interested. She's like, I think you might be a good fit for tech consulting. And I was like, oh, I'm going to stop you there. I don't have tech skills. And she was like, no, we bucket people into two categories, and business consultings are like everything that's like a non-STEM major, and the minute you're a STEM major, it goes into tech consulting. And I was like, okay, but do you expect me to have tech consulting? No. So that was that. And so I applied. I went to a couple of events that they had on campus. And then their application process that year, which has since changed, but that year it involved an on-campus interview. So I did the first round of that, and then I passed that, and I moved on to a final round, which was a super day in New York, which was a case interview and then 2 behavioral interviews. And then when I passed, I got the full-on offer. But yeah, the on-campus interview was a behavioral interview. Like, it wasn't a case or anything intense like that. But I remember the interviewer was really tough. And it's funny because I actually work with her now. I know this. So I worked with her for like a month, and I was like, this woman looks really familiar, and I could not place her. And then she's like, you know that I interviewed you, right? I was like, oh my God.
Throwing it way back.
Yeah.
You're OG.
So, yeah, it was, she was super intimidating, and I walked out of it and I was like, I did not get this. And all of my friends had applied for the same internship, and all of them were like, oh my God, it went terribly. Like, we all are just kind of accepting our losses. And of all my friends, I was the one that got, I felt really bad about it because they had prepped a lot more than I had. And I just like wandered in, and I was like,
right.
oh my goodness. Hello. Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy. That's really fun that you're working with your interviewer now. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was cool.
Your bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then what was it like? So when did you find out that you were going to be brought on full time, or how was that process at the end of your internship?
So they literally told me when I went for the super day for the internship, and I didn't even ask. I think that there was like a staff. So someone who's my level now was like walking us around, and you have like a person that's like your buddy. So they're there to answer any questions you have as you walk between interviews. And I was like, oh, like, what was your journey here? And he's like, no, I interned like you, and then I took the full-time offer. He's like, don't worry. As long as you don't burn the building down, they will give you a full-time offer. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, yeah. Like, the whole reason it's so competitive as an internship is because they want to give you a full-time offer at the end of it. They literally have already vetted you. You've now got experience with the company, and with the work that they do. There's no reason for them not to hire you. So in that way, I think like the internship process is really great. Like, yeah, it sucks, but if you land one, you're set. Like you're pretty much guaranteed, at least in this type of company, you're guaranteed an offer at the end of the line, which is really nice, because even if you maybe want to look at other options, you have something on the table, which is a great place to be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's really cool. So Anisha, according to you, what are the perks of being a career chameleon? Like, what does a career chameleon mean? Because that's one of the biggest questions I've had before this.
Sure. I feel like it kind of has a couple of different meanings. When I thought of it, it was more along the lines of just like my ability to adapt to different situations. So I grew up mostly in the US, but we moved to Hong Kong when I was in my first 2 years of high school. So that was obviously a rapid change in environment, and just adjusting to kind of being in a public school to being in a private school setting where everyone was 3 times as smart as me, if not more. And then kind of going to college and having the same sort of feeling of everyone around me is much smarter than I am, and adjusting to that. Just being thrown into different situations where I am forced to kind of recalibrate based on the way that I was operating before, has made it a little bit easier to go into the industry that I'm in now, because that pretty much is what I'm asked to do on a month or every 2 month basis. Every time I start a new job, it's kind of like dropping you in the deep end and figuring out how to go from there. And you're expected to pick it up pretty quickly. So because I've kind of been doing that since I was 13, 14 years old, it made a lot of sense when the career opportunity presented itself to do the same.
Right.
And I think it also has made me not quite so afraid of changing. I think when I initially had that idea of, okay, maybe I don't want to go pre-med anymore, obviously that's really scary for a lot of people. But having that prior experience of just being dropped into new circumstances made it a little bit easier to be like, okay, I think I can figure this out. Like I've done it before and I think I can do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And this is going to be a very sort of personal question because you sort of have experience teaching a lot of people, educating people over the weekends and stuff like that. So what advice do you have for people, students and professionals that have been impacted by COVID and they're in the process of either graduating or they've lost their jobs?
Yeah. I think the first is something that I used to tell even when Kaios used to come and ask me about career advice. It was always just any experience is good experience, even if you don't realize now how it fits into what it is that you want to be doing. Like looking back, when I was doing my research experience, did I think that it was going to land me a job in consulting? No. But you learn things along the way, and one, having that positive attitude, and two, just being able to go in with this idea that you want to do the best it is at whatever it is you're being asked to do and try to get something out of that experience, no matter how well it matches up to what it is that you think that you would be doing. I think that's huge. And I think the other thing is it kind of doesn't work as well in the COVID environment, but just internships are a lot more important than you think that they are. And so obviously not everyone can afford to be in a situation where they have an unpaid internship experience, especially if you're living in a high cost city. But if you are able to get virtual internship experience, that's really great. Like, as I kind of said, any experience is good experience to have, because at the end of the day, you can put it on a resume and say, I did these things. I was responsible for this piece of a huge project. And that makes people more likely to want to give you more responsibility because you put yourself out there. I think the biggest thing that I didn't realize is I thought research was super important, and I thought I wasn't going to get hired without research. And research is great if you want to go the grad school route, but I think if you want to go into industry, having more practical experience is a little bit more important, just so that they can. But you can also spin research experience. Like, I think it's all about how you frame the experience that you have. So don't diss any opportunities that come your way, especially if you're in a situation where it might not be the ideal right now. Just take what you can get and make the best of it and kind of move forward with that positive attitude.
Well,
I think that's another.
Go ahead, Alia.
That's another part of the chameleon aspect, I think, is like being able to take your experience and then applying it to whatever situation that you're in, which I think is. Sometimes it's hard to be like, okay, well, I do this totally different thing. All of my internship experiences are not really related, but I've found that when I'm at work and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that, this thing one time, people are like, what? And then that's another thing that you can kind of offer to the place that you are, the team that you're working on.
Yeah, I feel like soft skills are a lot more important than hard skills, especially like in most jobs that I've encountered. I think hard skills, at a certain point, you can kind of, like, I have a little bit of tech background and I can kind of get by with that. But I think the soft skills, being able to just communicate with people and empathize with people and understand what they're going through at any given point in time, and also just wanting to do your best for those people, I think goes a really long way.
Yeah, especially in your role that you're in right now, making those connections with the clients.
Right, exactly.
Very, very true. And one other thing I wanted to touch upon was, I remember you mentioned that your mom networked and sort of gave your resume to this person for the summer incubator.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on networking? I know in consulting, that's a huge concept of making sure that you are reaching out to your coworkers and other people. What are your thoughts about that in terms of people still in college? I
think networking is super important, but I think that it's overthought I think you hear the term and you think, oh my God, I need to network. How do I network? Like, how does that work? Networking is literally just making friends with everybody that you meet, like, wanting to get to know everybody that you meet, hearing about their life story, hearing what they're doing now, work, what they've done in the past for work, just having a genuine interest in people. And I don't think I understood that that's what networking entailed. For me, it was this very formal process of I have a business card and I need to hand it to you. And not how it works in the real world. I think just everybody you meet, go in with an open mind and be like, great, what are you, even if it doesn't directly relate to what I want to be doing in the future. And also, this was a piece of advice that was given to me recently. Don't talk to people with just the intent of like, great, can you give me a job at the end of this conversation? Right. Like, it will not be an immediate transaction or any transaction at any point, but just having those relationships, if they have a vested interest in you, they're going to be more willing to kind of introduce you to people down the line. Like there is a member of the board of trustees at the University of Rochester that I'm very close with, and I met her through She's the First. It was a lot of students, I guess, really want to try to get to know her, and I met her because she's on the board. She was on the board at that time for this nonprofit that I was starting, and I had no idea how influential she was at the university. I just really wanted to know why a 70-something-year-old woman was so invested in, and I loved that she was so invested and she really wanted to get it on our campus, why she was so invested in this organization. And so we bonded through that. And she's been a wonderful friend over the past few years. As every step in my career, she's more than happy to kind of introduce me to people that are vaguely related. When I was thinking of going pre-med, she introduced me to all the pre-med people that she knew. When I was getting into finance and consulting, she's like, great, here's like 100 different people that I want you to talk to. So just having those people that are in your corner, that comes from having relationships with them.
Yeah,
well,
totally.
That's very well said. Yeah, the friendly networking aspect, I think that really resonated with me because it's so common. I remember in college when I was networking, it was sort of that transaction thing, like, oh, read my resume or like pass it along.
Yeah. And being on the other side of it, it's just like it feels like you remember what it was like, but it's also like, okay, like maybe just try to make it a little bit more friendly, conversational. Like, we want to help you. And I think that's huge with the Rochester community. I know that anytime a current student reaches out to me, I'm more than happy to help them, assuming that I like don't forget about their email, which has happened way too many times and I feel really bad about it. But like, just know that people are interested in helping you, but you don't have to go and approach it like a transaction. Like it can be more of a friendly conversation, and the more you put into it and the bigger that relationship is, the more they're willing to help you down the line.
Totally. Yeah. I was also listening to a podcast that was like saying that those, the connections that are more like at your level, you don't necessarily have to go up to make like good connection that can help you. Because keeping those connections that are at your level and having conversations with people who are doing similar things is also really beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you touch on a really good point. I think a lot of the people that I've met since joining EY have gone off to do really great things. And I look to them as inspiration of like, cool, I can exit consulting and go on and do these awesome things. And they're coming from a similar background as I am. Just knowing these people and hearing about how their different backgrounds got them to the same place that I am now. And also using them when other people reach out to you and you say, oh my gosh, you went to Cornell as well. Great. I can introduce you to a coworker of mine who went to Cornell, and you guys can talk about that experience, you know? So having that kind of little black book of just people that you know and speak with regularly.
Yeah.
Very, very awesome. All right. So I think we're about time to
I have one more question.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right. I'll bring you back on.
Yeah, bring it back. Come on. Do you have any career-based book or podcast, blog recommendations that have been helpful to you?
Sure. I use my parents a lot as a career guiding principle, but in terms of books, I read a lot of Harvard Business Review. It's super helpful, and if you have a subscription, it's awesome. I listen to their podcasts as well, similar to Bloomberg, Business Week, things like that. I my dad got me a book that's like an HBR Women at Work. So I think that there's a lot of really interesting content out there about being a woman in the workplace. And I think when I joined, I was like, I'm used to being in male dominated spaces like this. I was an engineer and now I'm going into consulting. It's not that big a, like, I think I know how to navigate it. And I don't think it was until I listened to those pieces of content that I was like, oh, wow, like I really didn't realize that these experiences that I was having were universal experiences for women in the workplace. workplace. And you don't realize that until you read about it or hear about it. So any sort of kind of, if you are a female in the workplace, just listening to those types of things, and otherwise, whatever industry you're interested in, even if it doesn't tangentially seem related to what you like. I love politics and I listen to politics. Am I ever going to go into politics? Probably not. But like just knowing about it is really great. And I think the other big piece of advice, I think my dad gave me when I was younger, was just have general understanding of what is going on in the world at any given time. I feel like the more I know about just current events in general, the more educated I feel in a conversation. Read the books that everyone's reading, watch the news, read all the stories that people are reading. New York Times, Atlantic, just like consume the content that people are reading and consuming so that you can have those conversations and elevate it one step further and have intelligent discussions with other people.
Yeah, totally. I always felt like I didn't really have enough time to read up on current events, but now that I'm post-grad, I feel like I obviously have more time than when I was at school, busy with all these different things. And it's really interesting to feel like, or it's interesting to learn about what's going on in the world, even if it doesn't impact you. And some things that really light a fire in you that you're trying to change the world. But
exactly,
good to know.
And realizing that you're one small piece of what's going on, and just being aware that other people might have very different experiences. Yeah, totally.
Yep, very true. All right, are we ready to conclude now?
Yeah. Thanks for I think we're good.
All right, so thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm going to give an opportunity for Anisha to share any closing thoughts before we do wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was great. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I am more than happy to, if you are a subscriber of Careers Uncorked or you're just a University of Rochester alum who's interested in consulting, I'm happy to talk to you a little bit more. As someone who didn't know what consulting was when I started undergrad, I totally get it. And so I love helping pass the baton on to other people the same way that people helped me. So yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything else, but that's what came up.
No, that's perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Anisha, for being here. If anyone tuning in, they want to follow Anisha on LinkedIn, she's more than happy to chat with you. Along with that, make sure to tune in to our website at careersuncorked.com. And we'll have a recorded version of this session as well as previous sessions that we've had. And that should be it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We're having a session next Wednesday with someone else from the University of Rochester, which is really exciting. So watch out for that announcement. And that should be it. You want to say bye, Aliyah? I don't think we'll see you next Wednesday. But yeah. Sad face. All right. All right. Thanks so much, you both. I really appreciate you hanging out with us, Anisha. And we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing to receive a notification next time we post. Catch you next time.
Wow.
Okay. Like this?
My God.
Oh.
My God.